In this lesson, we'll begin our first mini project where we'll implement an image-based design. All right, so we just wrapped up learning about image-based design in the previous lesson. Now, the project files that you're going to need first to follow along with this lesson, you'll want to check your referenced files folder, and you'll find this XYZ consulting _process.doc file. Now, I'm going to talk about this here in just a moment, but let's kind of set up a mock scenario here. I'll go ahead and just give you a fictitious client that we can build this design around. So let's say we've been approached by XYZ Consulting, and XYZ Consulting has a problem with sexual harassment in their workplace. They want to commission you to create a series of posters that can be hung around the office that'll remind their employees that this type of behavior isn't acceptable within the workplace. Now, obviously, this is a very, very serious topic and one that should never be taken lightly. But in the sense that this business, this XYZ Consulting, has customers or their clientele that comes into their workplace, this is not something we want to sort of air our dirty laundry about. We don't want their customers to know that this type of behavior is happening in their workplace. So in this project, what I'd like to do is create a poster design for XYZ Consulting that will communicate this message to their own employees in sort of a subtle, humorous fashion. Now, in my opinion, this is a perfect opportunity to use image-based design. If we were to create posters that had no text on them that really spelled out the problem, then it may not be able to be interpreted by people outside the organization. So we're going to be using photographs and a little bit of manipulation to create this project. But we talked about the design process in a previous lesson, and I've gone ahead and gone through that process really quickly for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit sort of the highlights before we get started implementing this. But as you can see here in this consulting _process document, I've gone ahead and just spelled out the problem here. I've gone ahead and listed that out, and I've also listed some objectives for this project. We want to use humor and subtlety to communicate that sexual harassment is not acceptable, and we want to use only imagery so as to not make visitors to the facility blatantly aware that there's a problem like this. So in researching the different aspects of this project, we probably want to research first the target audience. Thinking about that, that's going to be the employees of XYZ Consulting. Who are we talking to? What are their likes? What are their dislikes? How do they communicate when it comes to things like this? We also want to probably think about competitors in a situation like this, because obviously the walls at this office are probably not bare. What else is the poster that we designed going to have to compete with? So we may want to create some kind of a contrasting design so that it catches their eye. Now, in terms of stylistic direction, we've already talked a little bit about possibly doing a photographic route for this. So after I've done this, it's time to go and jump into the brainstorming step. And I've gone ahead and got this right here behind. If you want to check the Photoshop files folder, you'll find this Lesson 5 Begin file. Now, in this file, I've got here just a simple layer that I've created in this Photoshop document where I've gone ahead and sketched out some really quick ideas. So maybe we could use a photograph of a man and have either a sort of a lipstick kiss on him. So thinking about the aspect of using humor to convey this, I think that it's probably quite popular to think that typically females are harassed in the workplace in this fashion. So maybe we could flip the tables on this, and maybe it's a male that we're depicting in this poster that has been harassed. So with this quick little thumbnail sketch, what I've got here is a man, and he's got sort of a lipstick print on his cheek, and he's got a very surprised look on his face. I went down here and experimented a little bit with that same little sketch of this man, and instead maybe he's been slapped and he's got a handprint on his face. Well, we talked about sort of flipping the tables, so I went ahead and said no, and I went ahead and did a quick sketch of maybe it's a female. Maybe we do a poster of a female, and she has sort of a handprint on her face, and like she has been slapped for saying something inappropriate. So there's all kinds of ways that we could experiment with this, and in this experimentation phase, if this was a real client, I would probably set a time limit in terms of how long I spent sketching and brainstorming, and then sit down and choose the best possible route based on the objectives we set early on. So with that said, right here, based on these sketches, I kind of like the way this one is going right here. So what I've got for you, if you want to check in the referenced files folder, is I've got this lips.psd file. Now, the ladies up here at Digital Tutors were kind enough to kiss a piece of paper for me so I could scan that in and we could use that in this project. But, you know, looking at this piece of paper, if we were to zoom in here on Photoshop, you'll see that based on sort of the picture-perfect imprint of lips with lipstick on them, we're not seeing a whole lot of really great options here. I see some that are probably passable, but most of them have a little something wrong with them. There's some dirt or something that was on the paper. There's an incomplete impression, or the lips just aren't in sort of that stereotypical form. So let's go ahead and choose one of these lips. Let's just choose this one down here at the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and crop this document down. So let me go ahead and grab my crop tool. It's right here. Looks just like that. You can also hit the keyboard shortcut C to access this. And I'm going to go ahead and delete the cropped pixels by checking that box right there. So that means after I have clicked and dragged sort of this square, anything that is outside the square is going to end up being deleted after I confirm this crop. So let's go ahead, and once we've drug a square around these lips, I'm just simply going to grab these little controls here, and I'm going to sort of just space that out so it's centered, kind of like so. All right, great. So we've got that cropped. Let's go ahead and hit enter. And you can see here that we have cropped in on these lips. So let me go ahead and grab my selection tool, and I'll hit spacebar and control to zoom in a couple times. Now, we mentioned here that these lips really aren't the ideal shape. So thinking about possibly some changes to these to make them a little more ideal. I like the shape we have going on this side, but this side over here feels a little bit incomplete. It also feels like it's just kind of missing that point here. I also feel like there's a little bit of the smudge going on here, kind of around these two peaks, and we might be able to clean that up a little bit as well. However, before we do anything else to these lips, I'm going to go ahead and save a copy. Let me come up here to File and choose Save As, and we're just going to choose to name this one something like lips_cropped. There we go. And I'm just going to save it right inside that referenced files folder. So you'll have access to this as well. So we'll go ahead and hit save, and Photoshop now saves that copy, so we haven't overwritten the original file. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start to repair these lips, make them a little more ideal. So now this is a very quick way that we're going to do this. I know that I have these backed up, so I'm not going to worry about working non-destructively at this point. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly use the smudge tool right here. Looks like a little hand with a finger on it. And I'm going to come up here and turn the strength up to 100%, just like so. And let's go ahead and right click right here on our lips somewhere, and you're going to access this brush preset picker here. Now these are the default brushes with Photoshop, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose this very top one here, which has kind of got a soft edge to it, and I'm going to drag this hardness slider up some. Let me just go ahead and click away from there. And with this done, we can also, in this same dialog, we can access the size of the brush, just like so. So I'm just simply going to drag that up a little bit so I can start to kind of smudge some of this information around. I'm doing this very subtly. I'm just kind of tapping at this. I don't want to smudge too much. If you go too far, you might end up with something like that. So let me hit Control Z to undo that. And I'm just going to continue to sort of smudge these lips into the shape that I want here. Just kind of come in and create a little bit of a curvature there. I'm going to bring that out a little bit. We can always come in here and shrink that brush down if we need to. And we can come in and make it a little softer just by turning that hardness slider down. All right, so those are starting to look pretty good. Feel free to spend as much time kind of smudging these lips around as you'd like to. You might even come up here and start to kind of refine this top area as well. So ultimately, it's really not about getting perfect lips for this very first exercise. What I want you to do is just kind of be able to identify how these lips could be better, could be more ideal, and understand that we don't need to go out and necessarily hire a model and have her kiss a piece of paper and have that photographed. We can use the resources that we have at hand, and we can use our creative eye to repair those here in an application like Photoshop. So the last thing I want to do here is do a little bit of color correction on these lips. They're very, very bright red, and I want to be able to bring them into a photograph and not have them just so bright that they're just dominating the image completely. So let's go ahead and do some color correction really quickly. I'm going to come down to the bottom of my layers panel, and let's hit this little half black, half white circle, and I'm going to create a hue saturation adjustment layer. Now that should pop open this properties window or this properties panel. We'll work with that here in just a moment, but notice over here it's created this layer in my layers panel, and you can see here it's above my background layer, which is my lips. So now identifying kind of the problem here with color that we've got going on the main form of the lips. They're very, very bright red, very saturated. So I'm actually going to come over here and where it says master, let's go ahead and drop that down and let's choose our reds right there. So we're only going to affect the reds with this change. Now again, this is not this particular change we're making is not a permanent change. It's a non-destructive change because it's being made through this separate layer right here. So now I know the saturation is kind of high, so might want to pull that down. Might want to also affect the lightness a little bit, maybe darken those up just a bit. Maybe find a nice balance between those two. And I'm also feeling like they're a little bit blue. Maybe we want to warm them up a little bit. So we can actually grab the hue slider here, and you can see I'm actually making them a little more purple by dragging it to the left. If we drag it to the right, it's going to start to get into sort of an orange and eventually kind of a greenish color there. So don't want to go too far with that, but I may just go ahead and drag that just a little bit to the right. You can see I'm about a +7, +8, somewhere around in there. Might just, again, tweak this a little bit, find the right balance for this kind of this darker red that we're looking for. So now in this lesson, we have kind of run through the early parts of our creative process, and we've gotten about halfway through the implementation part of this very first project. We've gone ahead and done a little bit of Photoshop work on these lips. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and pick up where we're leaving off here in the next lesson and bring these lips in and place them on an image for our poster. So we'll do that in the next lesson.